Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in any room are often the ones who seem least invested in staying there? They don't argue their worth. They don't convince anyone of their value. They simply stand up and walk toward the door, and suddenly, the entire atmosphere shifts. Voices soften, positions change. People who were unmovable moments ago start making concessions. Now imagine if you understood this principle deeply enough to use it. If you realized that your ability to leave is the greatest source of power you possess. What would happen if you stopped clinging to situations, relationships, and negotiations that don't serve you? That's where the real game begins. When you develop the capacity to walk away without hesitation, the world treats you differently. Not because you've become cruel or indifferent, but because you've stopped being desperate. And desperation, as Niccolò Machiavelli understood, is the death of strategy. Machiavelli said, "The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise that the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not." Think about what this really means. The strongest adaptation is knowing when to stay and when to leave, when to invest energy and when to withdraw it completely. Those who master this timing don't just survive, they dominate, because they understand something most people never learn. Attachment is the enemy of power, and walking away isn't retreat. It's the ultimate move of mastery. You've been conditioned to believe that persistence is always noble, that staying, fighting, and proving yourself demonstrates strength. From childhood, you learned that quitting is for losers, that real winners never give up, that loyalty means remaining no matter what. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. This belief system is a trap, and it's been keeping you powerless your entire life. Do you know what happens when people realize you'll never leave? They stop trying, they stop valuing you, they stop making any effort to keep you because you've already shown them that no matter what they do, you'll stay. You become like furniture, expected, reliable, taken for granted. And when something is always there, it loses all mystique, all value, all power. Machiavelli spent his life observing power dynamics in Renaissance Italy, watching princes rise and fall, studying what separated the conquered from the conquerors. And one pattern emerged repeatedly. Those who could not walk away eventually lost everything. Those who clutched too tightly at power, at relationships, at positions, found those very things slipping through their desperate fingers. But those who held everything loosely, who demonstrated through action that they could leave at any moment, these were the ones people fought to keep. This isn't about being manipulative or playing games. It's about understanding a fundamental law of human psychology. People value what they might lose, not what they already possess, not what will definitely stay, what they might lose. Carl Jung understood this from a different angle when he spoke about the shadow, that part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. Your inability to walk away is often your shadow speaking, your unexamined need for approval, your terror of being alone, your identity wrapped up in being needed by others. Every time you stay in a situation that disrespects you, you're making a statement. Not to them, to yourself. You're saying, "I am not worth more than this." You're teaching your own psyche that your boundaries are negotiable, that your peace is expendable, that your self-respect has a price. And once you've taught yourself this lesson, the world simply reflects it back to you in every interaction. The mechanism is simple but devastating. When you can't walk away, you become a hostage. Not through external chains, but through your own psychological prison. You negotiate from weakness. You accept less than you deserve. You tolerate behavior that erodes your soul. Why? Because leaving feels like failure. Because you've confused persistence with dignity. Because somewhere along the way you forgot that the door exists. But Machiavelli knew something that transforms everything. The strongest negotiating position is not needing the negotiation at all. The moment you become genuinely willing to walk away, not as a bluff, but as a real option you've made peace with, everything changes. People sense it. They feel the shift in your energy. You're no longer asking for respect. You're simply requiring it, and if it's not given, you're gone. Let's go deeper into what really happens when you can't leave. This isn't just about relationships or jobs, though it shows up there. This is about how you relate to your entire existence. Machiavelli observed that princes who ruled from fear of losing their position made terrible decisions. They clung to power so desperately that they became paranoid, tyrannical, ultimately destroying the very thing they were trying to preserve. Sound familiar? How many times have you damaged something beautiful by holding it too tightly? How many times has your fear of loss actually created the loss you were terrified of? This is what Jung called the self-fulfilling prophecy of the unconscious. When your actions are driven by desperation rather than choice, you radiate an energy that repels the very things you're trying to attract. Here's the cruelest irony. The people who respect you most are often those who've seen you walk away. Not from them necessarily, but from situations that didn't honor you. They've witnessed you choose yourself over convenience. They've seen you value your peace over keeping false harmony. And this creates a deep, almost primal respect because it demonstrates something rare: self-possession. Machiavelli wrote extensively about virtù, this quality of decisive action combined with strategic intelligence. But virtù isn't just about what you do. It's about what you're willing not to do. It's about the relationships you're willing not to maintain, the opportunities you're willing not to chase, the approval you're willing not to seek. Because every time you say yes to something that diminishes you, you're saying no to yourself. Think about the last time someone truly valued you. Not when you were most available, most helpful, most accommodating, but when you became scarce, when you pulled back your energy, when you stopped being predictable. Suddenly, texts that went unanswered for days get responses. Suddenly, effort appears where there was none. Suddenly, people remember your worth precisely when you stop reminding them of it. This reveals something profound about human nature that both Machiavelli and Jung understood from different perspectives. People don't value what they have. They value what they fear losing, and they don't fear losing what will never leave. Your constant availability doesn't make you valuable. It makes you invisible. Your inability to walk away doesn't prove your loyalty. It proves your fear. But here's what most people don't realize. Walking away isn't primarily about teaching others a lesson. It's about teaching yourself that you can survive without them, that your worth isn't determined by who stays, that you are whole, complete, and powerful on your own. This internal shift is what Machiavelli called understanding your own fortuna, your capacity to shape your destiny rather than be shaped by circumstances. When you truly internalize that you can walk away from anything, a strange magic happens. You stop operating from scarcity. You stop accepting crumbs while pretending they're meals. You stop exhausting yourself trying to convince people of your value. Instead, you simply embody it. And those who don't see it, they're irrelevant because you're already halfway out the door. The cost of not learning this lesson is enormous. You become a prisoner of your own attachment. Every relationship becomes a negotiation where you have no leverage. Every job treats you as disposable because you've shown you won't dispose of it first. Every situation extracts more from you than it returns because it knows you'll accept the terms. This isn't living. It's slow-motion surrender. And let's be honest about what this really looks like in your daily life. It's the friendship where you're always the one reaching out, always the one making plans, always the one who cares more. It's the romantic relationship where you're terrified to express your needs because you might rock the boat. It's the workplace where you take on extra projects, stay late, sacrifice your weekends, all while watching less capable people get promoted because they understood something you didn't. Scarcity creates value. Machiavelli watched this pattern destroy kingdoms. Rulers who couldn't walk away from bad alliances, who couldn't abandon losing strategies, who couldn't let go of advisors who were actively sabotaging them. Why? Because they confused loyalty with wisdom. They thought persistence was always noble. They believed that real strength meant never backing down, and they lost everything because of it. The same principle applies to your life, just on a different scale. Your inability to leave is costing you more than you realize. So how do you develop this power? How do you transform from someone who clings desperately to someone who can walk away with dignity? It starts with an uncomfortable truth. You must be willing to lose everything to gain yourself. Not recklessly, not self-destructively, but with the clear-eyed recognition that nothing external is worth betraying yourself for. Machiavelli advised princes to prepare for every contingency, to never become so dependent on any single alliance, resource, or circumstance that they couldn't function without it. This is strategic sovereignty, and it applies to your personal life just as much as it applied to Renaissance politics. You need to build yourself into someone who doesn't need any particular person, job, or situation to be okay. Not because you're cold, but because you're complete. Start small. Practice saying no without explanation. Notice how your body reacts. Notice the guilt, the anxiety, the voice that says you're being selfish or harsh. That voice, it's not wisdom, it's conditioning. It's the internalized demands of everyone who benefited from your inability to set boundaries. Jung would call this the voice of your persona, that false self you created to be accepted. And it's time to stop listening to it. Next, identify your points of desperation. Where are you staying out of fear rather than choice? What relationship continues only because you're terrified of being alone? What job do you tolerate because you don't believe you can do better? What friendship persists despite chronic disrespect because you've known them forever? These are your prisons. And the key has been in your pocket the entire time. Walking away doesn't mean storming out dramatically. Machiavelli understood that the best strategic moves are often quiet, calculated, and completely unexpected. Sometimes walking away looks like gradually withdrawing your energy, becoming less available, responding less quickly, investing your time and attention elsewhere. You're not making a scene. You're simply reallocating your most valuable resource, yourself. But here's where it gets real. When you start to pull back, people will notice, and they will not like it. They'll accuse you of changing, of being distant, of not caring anymore. They'll try to guilt you back into your old role. This is the test. This is where most people cave, apologize, and return to being overly available. Because the discomfort of being misunderstood feels worse than the exhaustion of being used. Don't cave. This discomfort is not evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that you're breaking a pattern that served others at your expense. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Now, I'm not suggesting you become feared, but I am suggesting that being respected matters more than being liked. And you cannot have respect from others until you have it for yourself. The transformation deepens when you realize that walking away isn't about them at all. It's about you reclaiming your energy, your time, your peace. It's about reconstructing your life around what actually matters rather than what you've been told should matter. Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you actually are rather than who everyone else needs you to be. Expect resistance, expect confusion, expect people to tell you you're overthinking, being dramatic, throwing away good things. These voices will be loud, both external and internal. But remember what Machiavelli knew. Your enemies will never tell you to become stronger. They benefit from your weakness. So any voice, whether inside or outside your head, that tells you to stay small, to stay accommodating, to keep sacrificing yourself, that's not love, that's control. As you practice this new way of being, something remarkable happens. The people who truly value you will step up. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll match your energy. They'll demonstrate through actions, not just words, that they want you in their life. And those who don't, they'll reveal themselves quickly. They'll disappear the moment you stop being useful. And you know what? That's perfect. That's the trash taking itself out. Walking away becomes easier each time you do it. Not because you become cold, but because you finally understand your own worth. You see clearly that staying in diminishing situations isn't noble. It's self-destructive. You recognize that your capacity to leave is what makes your choice to stay meaningful. Because now, when you remain somewhere, it's not out of fear or obligation. It's a conscious choice from a place of power. And then comes the silence. That space after you've walked away from what no longer serves you. At first, it feels empty, uncomfortable. You second-guess yourself. You wonder if you made a mistake. You feel the ghost limbs of relationships that are no longer there. This is normal. This is the death that precedes rebirth. And you must sit with it. But gradually, something shifts. The silence becomes peaceful rather than painful. The space you created starts filling with things that actually nourish you. New opportunities appear that would never have found you when you were cluttered with old obligations. New people enter who treat you the way you deserve because you're now energetically aligned with receiving respect rather than tolerating disrespect. You realize that walking away wasn't losing anything. It was making room. Room for yourself. Room for your actual life, not the life you were living for everyone else's comfort. Room for the version of you that exists when you're not performing, not explaining, not justifying your existence to people who should have been grateful for your presence. And here's something nobody tells you about this transformation. It's addictive in the best way. Once you experience the lightness of walking away from what doesn't serve you, once you taste the freedom of choosing yourself, you can't go back. You start seeing opportunities everywhere to practice this power. Not because you become cynical or avoidant, but because you finally understand that your presence is a gift, not a given. That your time is finite and precious. That your energy is sacred and should be guarded like the treasure it is. You stop treating yourself like you're abundant and disposable. You start treating yourself like you're rare and valuable. Because you are. Machiavelli understood that true power isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. It's about being so sovereign within your own being that external circumstances can't shake your foundation. When you master the art of walking away, you become unmanipulatable. Because what can anyone take from you when you've already demonstrated you don't need them? This is the ultimate freedom. Not having everything, not needing nothing, but being genuinely okay with walking away from anything that costs you your peace. This is what Jung meant by wholeness, that state where you're no longer fractured by trying to be everything to everyone. You're simply yourself, complete, undivided, sovereign. The people in your life now, they're there by choice, mutual choice. You're not holding anyone hostage with your need, and no one is holding you hostage with theirs. This creates relationships of genuine depth because they're not based on obligation or fear or convenience. They're based on authentic connection between two whole people who've both learned the art of walking away. You'll notice you have more energy now because you're no longer bleeding it out through 1,000 small concessions to people who didn't appreciate it anyway. You're investing it strategically in relationships and endeavors that actually return value. This is what Machiavelli called prudence, the wisdom to know where to place your resources. And here's the beautiful paradox. Once you truly don't need anyone, that's when people want you most. Not because you're playing games, but because you radiate a kind of self-possession that's magnetic. You're no longer grasping, you're no longer desperate. You're simply present, powerful, and peaceful. And that combination is rare enough to be invaluable. The old you would have thought this transformation impossible. The old you believed that walking away meant being alone forever. But now you understand that being alone is not the same as being lonely. And being with people who diminish you is far lonelier than being by yourself. You've learned that solitude is not emptiness. It's fullness. It's the space where you finally hear your own voice without the world's static. So now I ask you, are you ready to pick up that power? Are you ready to stop negotiating with people who should be grateful you're even at the table? Are you ready to walk away from anything, anyone, any situation that requires you to be less than you are? Because that's what this is really about. Not abandoning people, but refusing to abandon yourself ever again. Today, we learned from Niccolò Machiavelli that strategic withdrawal is the ultimate form of leverage, that attachment destroys power, and that your capacity to walk away determines your value in every negotiation. From Carl Jung, we discovered that true individuation requires the courage to stand alone, to break free from collective expectations, and to become whole within yourself. These two great minds, separated by centuries, arrived at the same truth. Sovereignty begins when you stop needing anything outside yourself to be complete. If these insights sparked a moment of clarity for you, hit that like button and share this wisdom with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to join our community of thinkers who are reclaiming their power, one conscious choice at a time. We're building something rare here, a space where profound ideas meet practical transformation. Write in the comments, "I choose my power." Let's see how many are ready to master the art of walking away. And remember, your ability to leave is what makes your decision to stay meaningful. Never forget that. Until we meet again, carry this truth forward. The strongest player is always the one willing to leave the table. Keep exploring with us. Keep transforming. Keep choosing yourself. See you in the next video, where we dive even deeper into the psychology of power and self-mastery. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational and, hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.